Okay, I've talked about this before. This is the industrial hemp that grows wild around here, all over the place. It originally started from back in World War II. They were growing it, they were encouraged to grow it for the war effort. So this stuff is all over. Uh, and a lot of times they used to go around, the government would pay the National Guard to go on these marijuana eradication expeditions, and they'd be flying around with helicopters and whatnot. It was just a boondoggle, just a hell of a waste of money, and it's still all over the place. And it wasn't marijuana; it was just the industrial hemp that is growing naturally around here now. And the funny thing is, it is still illegal to grow it, though technically we do. We have laws in place in North Dakota here. And you can actually get a permit, but there's all kinds of red tape and regulations in it. It's too bad because it'd be a good crop for people to wean them off of this corn cycle, corn and soybeans. The hemp would make a lot more sense, but that ain't happening. They keep monkeying around. But Minnesota now has legalized marijuana, right next door. I mean, I could be in Minnesota in 20 minutes. But of course, there's all kinds of regulations, and it's getting out of hand. I mean, this just became legal, but my theory is also to just decriminalize it, just forget about it, let it go. People can grow some for their own use and whatnot, and that's perfectly fine. But no, now you have to get you have to get a license, but the license are only being issued on the Indian reservations, Red Lake and White Earth, and you have to be a minority. And of course there's a lot of permitting involved, and it's insane. It's back like when they started doing that legalized charitable gaming, and it was being done on the Indian reservations, and there's always, you get organized crime involved. A lot of times it has to be something like the place has to be like 51% owned by the tribe, but the other 49% can be any goddamn crook that wants to get involved. So there's always a lot of off the books and behind the back dealing in this kind of thing, particularly when you get involved in the reservations. So it's going to be a boondoggle. But I can imagine, they've been charging people left and right now. I mean, there's been people that have been out selling plants at flea markets and stuff. Well, they got to have a permit to do that. And you got to be. It's so they keep catching them and finding them, and you're just tying up law enforcement for a silly thing that is nothing but going to harm the tribe in the long run. But that's a silly thing. But there's going to be a lot of people getting in trouble for it. If they would have just say, okay, it's decriminalized, like it used to be back in like the 30s. If you want to grow, like now, I think they made a rule you can have up to 8 plants for your own use, but only 4 of them can be blossoming at any one time. Well, who the hell is going to be pestering around checking on that nonsense? Trying to give somebody a little fine. Like I say, it's just going to tie up law enforcement. I mean, there's a hell of a lot more serious problems in Minnesota than farting around with marijuana. But people wanted it. They voted it in. They keep trying to do it here in North Dakota too, but they can't swing it. And I really don't care, but I don't like when they start, tying into it's got to be minority owned and all this, but they're looking tax revenues. It's going to be a mess. Just to police something like that is just going to be a horrible mess. And like at the same time, I say it's still illegal to grow hemp. It's it's just such a screwed up thing. But there are a lot of people getting in trouble for selling it now, or like I say, selling the plants. The court's going to be just tied up with this nonsense. And I could imagine there had to be a hell of a migration coming out of the cities heading up towards the reservations as soon as this passed so that people could, stock up. But at the same time, the cops are going to know, to stop people because they've been confiscating large quantities from people. It's just such a mess that, if you're going to do something like that, you really got to think it through a little and look down the road. It's just going to be, it's like when they had prohibition on alcohol and there was just nothing but bootlegging going on. Because, like I say, in order to actually catch people doing that, it's going to take so much manpower that would be better spent doing other things. And the funny thing is now, they were just some smoke shop that they raided, and that was actually on the reservation, but it didn't have the permit from the reservation to be open, so they got raided, and a whole bunch of product got confiscated, and it's just got to be a mess. All you have to do in that kind of thing, just decriminalize it and forget about it. When you make it this controlled or try to control it so that you can get a little money off of it, that's when the trouble starts. Like I say, I'm not against it, but my theory is something like that. You just decriminalize it and forget about it. But this is only going to make a mess. Because now everybody, they're running around thinking, oh, I can buy it, I can sell it, I can do it, I can smoke it out in public, and you can't, But people get in trouble for doing it, and they get very belligerent because they think, oh, now it is legal, so they're hassling with the cops, and they had to iron out these problems before they went ahead with this, but they didn't. And then even the idea to tie it into minorities, that in order to get a permit you have to be a minority. Well, there again, I mean, it's just going to be corrupted and abused. It's a shame. Minnesota's crazy politically, though. I mean, they always have been, and they're only getting worse. But I think this is really going to make a mess. I just think it's a hell of a waste of police time. There's people robbing and murdering, and they're going to be spending all their time, and the courts are going to be spending all their time tied up with these petty little bickerings about marijuana. There are a hell of a lot more important things to be concentrating on. But when you make it, like they're trying to make it a big money venture so they can get money off it, tax money. But when you do that, the troubles start. the criminal element gets involved. Yeah, it'll be interesting, but it's going to be nothing but a mess.